All right, everybody. It's 11:01, Friday the 22nd. We told you last week we was going to be back with that better audio. This is the super producer trying to say, I told y'all he gave me a new name. So probably each week I'm going to get this new name. Okay.
You'll get it.
But we got Mr. Mario Coons here in the house, getting ready to bring you all of your fitness news, everything that you need to be doing out there to get in shape. I'm going to jump in here real quick. I fell off a little bit, y'all, the last week and a half. I'm going to be honest because we watching what I'm doing here. I fell off. I'm not going to say I didn't. I fell off, but I'm back on it, all right? So Mario's probably going to, at the end of the show, talk about that.
We'll talk about that. We're going to address that one.
All right, y'all. We're getting ready to bring him on. Mr. Mario Coons, here we go.
All right. It is great to be back. Another week, and we are ready for another episode of the Vanguard Fitness Hour. Hopefully, 2021 has been treating you all right. We are, 22 days into the new year. New challenges, new opportunities, and we're looking forward to meeting those together. And a big part of that is going to be addressing our health and making sure that we are doing all the things that we need to do to make sure that these beautiful machines that the good Lord gave us are operating properly and efficiently. So with that being said, it's time to get started because, as always, we've got 20 pounds of inspiration, motivation, and education to stuff into a 10-pound bag. So let's get going with that. First of all, I want to start off with what's new with the fitness guru. Now, this is the first time I've addressed this. And basically what I wanted to do is to utilize that as a platform or as an opportunity to reveal and share with the audience what it is that I'm doing differently. And a change that I wanted to start making for the new year in terms of my exercise routine was start to integrate more jump rope activity. Now, if you've done jump rope activities before, or if you've maybe read about it or just heard about it or know someone that's participated in that kind of activity, it is an excellent calorie burner. I mean, it works so many muscle groups. You've got the entire body going. The cardiovascular system is functioning at high levels. You've got a ton of different muscles that are integrating and working together to make that movement happen. So it's a great exercise, and although I do it sparingly in between different exercises, I was going to make it a regular part of my routine. So this is what I've been doing with jump rope. So basically, I've targeted a certain amount of repetitions that I wanted to perform. So I started this off basically first day one, January 1st, I started this. So I'm performing my jump rope activity. Now, everyone's target can be different. In each set, my goal has been to complete 100 repetitions straight through. Okay, so from 1 to 100. Now, I kind of like to play some mental games with myself to kind of push myself and challenge myself. So let's say I get to 56. And then I trip up. I don't complete the repetition and I have to stop. As opposed to picking up from 56, I will go back to 50 and pick up from there. So that's kind of that's kind of my goal. That's my motivation to make sure I get through that entire 100 without tripping up. So that's the first part of it. So each set consists of 100 repetitions. After I complete that set, I perform what's considered to be active rest. Now, with active rest, it's basically the opposite of what a lot of people will do. They complete some type of an exercise, whether it be cardiovascular-based or resistance-based training, and they will have a seat. And they'll rest up, and then they come back and they perform the next exercise. What I've done is to integrate active rest. So it's basically after I complete a set, I'm performing some other activity. It's a little lower level than the primary activity, but it's activity nonetheless. So I've integrated broomstick twists. Well, basically, I take a weighted bar, and you don't have to have a weighted bar. You can use an ordinary broomstick handle. And I'll probably make that one of the exercises that I demonstrate going forward on a future show. But basically, I've got it positioned just above the trapezius muscles, and I'm rotating left to right. Okay, so that's operating and causing my core to become engaged, my abdominals, my obliques. So I'll perform that during my break period. Now, break period, what am I doing with that? I started off with, after I complete each set, I have a 1-minute break, and then I go into the next one. So during that 60-second break, is active rest. So I'm performing broomstick twists in between those sets. Now, I'll get real creative. I'll change up exercises for active rest. So another time, it might be a slow jog in place. It might be dumbbell curls. It might be body weight squats. So you can have fun with this so it doesn't become stagnant and stale. Once I come back after that 60-second period is expired, I go back and I complete the next set. So the goal that I set for myself was 1,200 repetitions or 1,200 jumps. So I'm doing that 100 reps 12 times. And in between, during that 60-second period, I'm performing my active rest exercise, whichever it was that I've chosen to perform. And that's been giving me a really good workout. I've really been enjoying it. To step up the challenge, what I started to do after a week, I cut my rest period by 5 seconds. So what I'm trying to do is really to engage and enhance and develop my cardiovascular system. So now it's 55 seconds in between breaks. That also shortens my active rest time or exercises, but I'm getting back to that primary exercise. So like I said, I'm just 22 days in it. I've been really religious about it because I've been having some good success and I'm enjoying it and having fun with it. But that's how that's been working. So every week I cut back 5 seconds. So that's just something that I wanted to share with you. I thought it was a really exciting way to go. And if it doesn't take a lot of space, doesn't require a lot of equipment, basically a simple jump rope. Even if you don't have a jump rope and you want to simulate the movement of a jump rope, you can do that also. You're basically just rotating those arms, a little bit of a hop off the ground. If you've got joint issues, knees or ankles may be a problem. You don't even have to leave the ground. You can just kind of bounce up and down on the balls of your feet and simulate that jump rope activity. So that's something that you might want to think about when you are coming up with a new and creative ways to exercise. But that's what I'm doing. Basically, I am utilizing jump rope sequencing is kind of what I've referred to it as. So if you want more information about it, I'm going to have my contact info at the end of the show, and I'll give you a sample workout that you can utilize that I'm training with as well. So that brings up the next topic. And I was going to get into our first article for the day. And I got a couple really exciting ones that I found were very involved. But I want to get back to my super producer and talk a little bit about what he had brought up with his own exercises and his own workout routines. Now, as most of our regular listeners and viewers have known, that super producer Tronce has been going through his own workout regimen. I helped to put together a workout plan for him, and he's been going along with that. And just like we talked about before, there are going to be stumbling blocks. I wanted him to share, if you would be so kind, what it is that you've been going through and what some of those stumbling blocks have been and how you've addressed that. What did it make you feel? Because I know there are a ton of people out there that are going through the same thing. It's 22 days into it. And actually, the day before Inauguration Day, which was the 20th, January 19th, is known as Quitter's Day. Now, I don't want to offend anyone, but that's what the term has been known as. Research has indicated that typically 19 days into the new year for folks that make New Year's resolutions, and they don't have to be fitness oriented. Some are financially related, some are relationship related, that sort of thing. But on average, New Year's resolutions last typically until about January 19th. At that point, most folks have kind of given up on whatever it is that they've been trying to do. So if you made it past that date, congratulations, that is fantastic. If not, you are not alone, because the study that I looked at monitored the fitness activity of 98.3 million folks in terms of their activity levels and how it basically went off a cliff after the 19th. So there's a lot of research that reinforces that. But super producer, can you share with the audience what you've been going through and what you experienced with your own workout regimen and why it is that you said that you kind of fell off a little bit?
Well, basically, what happened, more so, I think it was just a little bit more personal goal setting that really really wanted to make sure that I was doing it correctly. Working, between working, making sure the show was going on, other things in regards to certain production stuff that we have. Kind of that kind of wrap me up a bit and just kind of take me away from actually what it was I was doing. It kind of felt like I wasn't giving enough to. And what I realized after speaking, with the co-owner, the one and only Miss Gil Harrison, she brought me to an understanding that look, you can't do everything. You have to take one step at a time to make those things happen. And so that's pretty much what I ended up doing, and just kind of pulling myself back in to a better understanding of the regiment and how to get that done. I kind of went into the little snack thingy, all of that basically, and just realized that, okay, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, that's pretty much what happened. So I just kind of got overwhelmed
Yeah.
with putting it all together, and so once being overwhelmed is one thing, but when you're overwhelmed in a sense of wanting to achieve, that becomes a bit of a depressant, basically.
Yeah.
When that you're not achieving what you want to achieve, and that's kind of basically what happened. Was that that, I guess, as they say, being an overachiever, and that's something that with me, I have to really realize and understand that. I guess you would say that's the OCD in me, and everything. I mean, it's been brought to my attention. Trust me.
I
so,
got you. I got you.
so that's the whole thing. Just I'm over trying to overachieve and not really looking at that you have achieved, and just continuing that regiment, will bring success. It's not going to happen overnight again. So just take your time and dedicate your time to everything that you need to dedicate your time to be successful. And
Absolutely.
and the exercise regimen is one of them. So that is a commitment that I made, and I'm going to continue to stick with that commitment. So
That's great. That's fantastic.
I told y'all,
Um,
I told y'all he was going to bring it up. So I ain't telling no more. Not gonna tell nothing else.
well, when we first start out on when you first started on this journey, we promised our listeners we are going to provide as much transparency as possible, and this is all part of it because there are going to be points in time where you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. The important part is to make sure that you first of all identify what got you off track. Whether it be family commitments or more heavier workload, or maybe a stressful topic that you've been dealing with that affects your mental outlook. Whatever the case might be, those things are going to come up. So it's important to identify that. Just like when an individual is trying to identify sources of stress because of the negative effects that it's having on that individual. That's the first part of it. You got to find out, well, why is this happening? What's the source of that? And once you do that, now you can kind of re-engineer or reverse engineer the process to find out, well, this happened and that resulted in that, and then that resulted in that. And then at the end, I wasn't working out or I wasn't eating properly anymore. And you brought up a couple of significant points. The workload, and you had a lot going on. And what I've found, with whether it be with patients or personal training clients and that sort of thing, we have a tendency, a habit, to put everything else before ourselves. And that can be the needs of a spouse or significant other. It could be the needs of your children, demands put on you by a boss, chores that have to be done around the home, all those sorts of things. And we, meaning you and I, we become put on the back burner. We're taking care of everything else but the most significant thing. And that is, it's all right to look at it as in that kind of a light. You are significant. You're important, because if you're not in good health, or God forbid, if you're not here anymore, all those other things, what does that matter? The people that depend on you, if you're not healthy, you're not going to be of a benefit to them. That job, if you're sick or you have to resign because of health issues, that job isn't going to get done. So you've got to take care of number one first. So that's the first thing. When it comes to those setbacks that we do have, it's important not to beat yourself up about it. Just like I talked about January 19th being Quitter's Day, right? After 19 days, typically people typically will fall off of their New Year's resolutions. And what happens is they start to feel guilty. They feel bad about it. I couldn't even make it for 19 days. This hasn't happened in all this time. It's not going to happen now. And they just kind of put those goals to the side, and they just, kind of forget about it until the next year. And they try to do the same thing. It becomes a vicious cycle. But it's important to realize, what, these setbacks are going to happen. Don't be frustrated by it. Don't be Don't allow yourself to get to the point where you're just so angry with yourself or so frustrated that you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, that you don't see any benefit with what you're trying to do. It's time to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again, just like that old song. And that's what's going to put you through, because those trouble spots are going to come up. And you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg now. But when you stay with it, when you stay steadfast on that goal, that's when you're going to see the benefits of it. Because it's not so much a resolution, it's a lifestyle change. You're developing habits. Okay, resolutions, at the basis sense, they're kind of meant to be almost temporary. Okay, you're changing the way that you live your life, and that takes time, and there are going to be negatives and setbacks involved with that. So use those to your advantage, find out what went wrong, and start all over, time to get back up on that horse and make sure that it happens the right way. So that's what I want to share with you in terms of that topic. So I want to thank super producer Tronse for sharing that with the audience. And we're going to be, again, continuing on with your journey. And we love that input, because I know there are folks out there that have been in the same position as you. So thank you very much for that. Next, I want to get into our first article of the week. And I found a couple of very interesting ones that are very recent. The first one is the topic of it was cheating on your Mediterranean diet with traditional Western foods like pizza, candy, and such can speed up brain aging. Now, what does that mean? So I'm just going to kind of summarize the key points in this. The Mediterranean diet, and I'll get into what foods are compromised on that particular diet. It basically helps you to lose weight in the process, the benefit of it is that research has shown that it slows down the brain aging process. A new study found that if you stick with that type of diet, you're going to get the benefits of it. So in addition to becoming healthier and losing weight, it also performs beneficial functions for the brain. It's going to slow down that aging process. And when you're talking about an aging brain, you're talking about a lot of the abnormalities that go along with that, things like dementia and Alzheimer's and those sorts of things. Research has found that those particular types of diets, when you add unhealthy foods to them, you're basically you're losing those cognitive benefits from that diet. So you can be on that diet, but then when you break it and you start to cheat on it, you're losing the benefits that come from it. Now, this study that this article comes from, it examined 5,001 people, and they were all over the age of 65. The study ran from 1993 to 2012, so it took them time to disseminate the data and to make sure that they extracted the right type of information for it. So it's a very, very thorough study and very long-term and long-reaching. So I'm very confident about the results that these researchers had come up with. They completed cognitive assessments and reported specific foods that were eaten. So they took a look at this Mediterranean diet that these folks were on, and then they tracked or monitored the foods that they cheated with. Were they eating pizzas or burgers or chips or sodas or, all those sorts of things that throw you off of that diet that are not included in that Mediterranean diet. They found that folks that stuck with the Mediterranean diet had brains that were nearly 6 years younger than their peers that were on a typical Western diet. So 6 years is a significant amount of time when you're talking about brain health. So this was very exciting to me. Let me get into some of it, because I know there are a lot of people that are saying, well, what's a Mediterranean diet? Basically, a Mediterranean diet focuses on things like fish and vegetables and legumes and olive oils, potatoes, unrefined cereals, and moderate wine consumption. Okay, so those are kind of the foundational items that you can find on a typical Mediterranean diet. So these folks were on this, and then as they went through this study, they monitored how they would perform on certain cognitive tests. And there's a lot of different testing that you can do with that, with shape identification, basic problem-solving skills, things like that, memory. So they're checking into all that and monitoring either whether or not the recipients or the participants in the study stayed stagnant, where they were, if they lost, or if they increased in terms of brain cognitive function. So this was very exciting. So what exactly is the Mediterranean diet? And I know there's a lot of them out there. There's keto, there's paleo, Mediterranean is another one. There's a ton of different diets. The Mediterranean has been one that's very popularized just because of the positive effects that most people who stick to it have experienced when they're on it. So basically what you're talking about, you're consuming more fruit, more fish, fewer sugary drinks and snacks. Those are some of the most important or significant aspects of the diet. In addition to that, you're talking about vegetables and nuts and seeds, whole grains, fish and meats. And when we're talking about fish that is high in omega-3 fatty acids. So that's what we're looking for when we're talking about Mediterranean food components. You're reducing or eliminating your intake of saturated fats, things like butter, red meat, processed foods, which I'm a big non-believer in anyway. Things like juice, white breads, sodas, sugars. So those things are basically significantly reduced or totally eliminated when you're talking about the Mediterranean diet. Things that you can consume in moderation, red wine is one. Okay. You can integrate your meals so that you're supplementing fruits into each one of those meals. You're going to swap things like sunflower oil or vegetable oil with things like extra virgin olive oil. Snacks are going to be like nuts, almonds or pecans, things like that. So those are some of the components of that Mediterranean diet. So again, it's a great study, but when you think about the long-term effects of it. And a lot of people think, I'm just cheating on my diet. It's not that significant. I urge you to think long-term. Now, there's short-term benefit to eating pizza, right? It tastes good and it makes you happy or whatever. Okay. At the end, you're going to be full. But over the course of time, if you take that long-range 10,000-foot view, is it really worth it? Because what I'm looking at now is quality of life. Okay, that's a big issue for me. How am I going to live as a senior? Okay, I've got to think about those things. Do I want to be the type of person that's bedridden? Do I want to be the type of person that's dragging around an oxygen tank? Do I want to be the type of senior that's taking 10, 15, 20 different medications every day in order just to function? And a lot of those are just contraindicative medications that offset the results or the side effects of another drug. I don't want to function like that. I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be able to do a lot of the things that I was able to do when I was younger. Now, I know I'm not going to be able to do all those things, but being able to function independently and live in that manner is very important to me. And a lot of that is brain health. I don't want to be to the point where I'm forgetting things that are at one point pretty significant and basic. So you have to take that long range view. So that's a big part of what this study was about and why I found it to be so interesting. So if you'd like more information about that, again, you can contact. I'm going to give that contact information at the end of the show. If you'd like a copy of the article, I'd be happy to get it over to you. So that is the first article that I wanted to share with you. The next, summer bodies are made in winter. Now, what does that mean? It's a very common slogan among individuals that exercise and work out. What exactly does that mean? A lot of times you get people that, come May, June, they're looking at, I got to get ready so I can put on this bikini and hit this beach or go to this party or whatever the case might be. In that case, if you're waiting that amount of time, you probably missed your window of opportunity. This is the time where the hard work is put in. We're in the middle of, toward the end of January right now. This is where you need to be working. Okay, it's real easy to do a lot of those things. Well, maybe not real easy, but it's a lot more. There are fewer barriers to exercise, in particularly in the area of the country where I am, which is the Midwest of the United States. It's we have these brutal winters, and it's real easy to push those things to the side just because it's too cold out, and it's gray out, and it affects your mood, and you got all these negative things going on. It's a challenge. Plus, we're dealing with the pandemic. So this is a time where a lot of folks, will be putting those things off. But on the contrary, this is the time where the work really needs to be put in. So when you think about it, summer bodies are built in the winter. You're basically getting yourself tuned up and built up to the point where when you can finally shed those clothes and show that skin and reveal all that hard work, this is when it happens. Okay, this transformation doesn't occur within the course of a few weeks or even a month. All right, a few months. You've got to be putting in that work over the summer, so don't ignore it. Research has indicated that habits that you form in the wintertime are more likely to stick. Now, why is that? Now, going through the article and kind of picking it apart, what it revealed is that typically but during that winter time, you've mastered the ability to build your resistance against a lot of temptations that are out there. What kind of temptations? Well, when it's cold out and you've got bad weather and that, you're more likely to stay at home. What do a lot of people do when they stay at home? Well, they tend to sit down more. Okay, they adopt more sedentary habits. Their eating habits tend to get thrown out of whack because it's very easy to snack. A lot of us, we don't even eat because we're hungry. We eat because we're bored. So when you're doing that more and more, what's happening? You're combining a sedentary lifestyle with increased caloric intake. That's a recipe for disaster. You are going to pick up weight doing those sorts of things, but it's kind of comforting in a sense. That's why, if you want to have that beverage or that slice of cake or whatever it is that kind of gets you going in terms of cheat foods, it's real easy to do that. Okay, it's not like during the summer when you're up and out and you're running around and doing all kinds of different things. So you want to keep that in mind. So when you're able to set those types of rules and regulations for yourself and establish those habits, you're basically setting them in an environment where it's not really conducive to setting those kind of positive habits. You've got to be very strict. You've got to be very disciplined. And if you can do that during the winter, you're able to do it during the summer. So that's why the research has indicated that habits that you are able to form during the winter are going to be most likely to stick with you. You're going to already know ways to fit your workouts in your days out and your days in, whatever the case might be, simply rather than finding excuses for skipping them. Because now it's more challenging to fit those workouts in. Okay, not only, it's not just a matter of saying if you are going to a gym now, I'm going to make it out to the gym and get my workout in. You've got to get out, you got to get bundled up, you got to warm the car up, you got to maybe deal with inclement weather conditions. It's more challenging. So when you're able to establish those habits now, they're going to stick with you. So my advice is to start small. Okay, just small incremental changes and build on those. I'm a big proponent of that. You've heard me say it before. You're going to hear me say it again. Set small incremental goals and build on those. Okay. Another avenue that you can utilize to establish your success for winter workout and building that summer body now is to use technology to your advantage. That's why smartwatches are so beneficial and they're so prevalent right now. It enables you to establish your goals and then match those goals with whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. So by using that technology and in most smartwatches, for example, and I'm not going to name a particular brand because a lot of them are equally good. It's just a matter of what functions they have or what the brand name is. But basically what you're looking for is a smart technology that's going to monitor your activity. It might be a step tracker, your heart rate, the amount of calories that you've burned, your sleep. You've even got some tracking features on smartwatches that'll manage stress, that'll monitor and report stress levels. So those are, very important factors. They're very basic, but those are the components that you're going to be looking for. So use that to your advantage. Keep a record of it. A lot of the features on there will allow you to track daily records so you can go back and see where you are. But that's a good way to do that. Use technology to your advantage. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the wintertime is particularly on days off when the weather is bad. It is so easy. It is so inviting to just want to stay wrapped up in that cocoon of a blanket or a comforter. It's just harder to get up in the morning sometimes. You just want to kind of stay there. You're nice and cozy and warm and comfortable. And to break that up by going out and exercising, or even to go down into your living room or your basement or wherever it is that you exercise, if you're exercising at home, to get up out of that bed, that comfortable position is just kind of tough. It's challenging. So you want to know that going in. It's going to be more challenging. But keep in mind, no one has ever gotten fit by laying in bed. So you want to make sure that you're making sure that you're staying the course, just like you're getting up, and if you have to go to work, right? You need to get up just the same way to get your exercise in, to get your workouts done, to prepare that meal, do your meal prep, those sorts of things. So your first obstacle in a lot of cases is just getting yourself out of bed and doing it and making it happen. That snooze button can be a killer. Now, if you've got a snooze button, that's fine, but set it up, it goes off, set it, hit that button the one time and get yourself out of bed. When you do those repeated snooze hits and just allowing, I need another 10 minutes, just another 15 minutes, before you know it, you're going to get to a point where you're not going to do anything. So you want to make sure that that's the case. One tactic or strategy that I use, it was a very simple one, but I found it to be effective. Before I even had a smartphone, I had just a regular traditional old alarm clock, and I would have it set to go off so that I can get my workout in. And there were some days where I was just dragging and I just did not feel like doing it. One of the things that I did, and it was very simple, I just moved my alarm clock from out of arm's reach. I set it on the other side of the room. So in order to get that irritating buzz to shut up, I had to get out of bed, make it over to the dresser all the way across the room and set it off. At that point, I'm kind of already up, so I just figured I might as well just keep going. So that was a simple thing. Maybe it wouldn't work for some, but it worked for me. And that was a simple strategy that I utilized, just getting myself out of bed. Last key point for this. You want to make sure that your motivation is firmly in mind. So that means, what is your goal? What is it that you're trying to achieve? If the goal is, you're basically looking at, why am I doing this? What's the reason for me putting this extra effort in? Focus in on that goal. If it's, I'm trying to get the ideal bikini body, or I'm trying to reduce my A1C numbers because I am a diabetic. If it's because, I've got to get this weight off because my joints are killing me. And you know that by losing weight, you're going to reduce that joint pain and that joint stress. Whatever it is, focus in on it. If you're trying to get into a certain outfit, have that outfit visible. Whatever you got to do, stay motivated, because that's going to push you through, especially in the doldrums of winter. So those are the key points I want to take out of the article and share with you today. So summer bodies are made in winter. Don't let winter become an excuse for you. Get it done. Look at this as an opportunity. Because it is cold, and depending again where you're located, because the weather is not ideal, now you've got an opportunity, because you're basically eliminating a lot of the other distractions that are out there. The festivals aren't going on. You're not going out and hanging out at the park. There's not a lot of outdoor parties or any outdoor parties at all. So use that, okay? Those things aren't taking place. I've got to supplement it, or I've got to fill that space with something else. That other thing, that something else, could be you dedicating your workouts to improving your body. Okay, so having said that, I want to get into the show topic of the day. This is actually going to be my first two-parter. It is effective ways to lose the belly fat. And these methods, these strategies I'm going to share with you, have been backed by science. Now, the reason why it's going to be a two-parter, there are 20 different topics or tactics that you can use. So I'm basically cutting those in half. I'm going to give you the first 10 today. And then when we come back next week, in addition to our other topics that I'm going to share with you, we're going to get into the other half, the 11 through 20. So this is a great article, because one of the most common things that I am addressed with when I'm talking with individuals is when they're talking about, I want to get healthy, I want to get fit, I'm trying to lose, I'm trying to tone. And I dig a little deeper. What does that mean? You want to tone, you want to tighten up, that sort of thing. And invariably, I would say in excess of 90% of those feedback responses I get, it has to do with the midsection. It has to do with the belly fat. It has to do with the obliques. They want to lose the love handles and that sort of thing. Now, don't be confused. There is no such thing as spot reduction. What is spot reduction? I can't say that I want to lose fat in my triceps muscle. You can't say that. You can say it, but it ain't going to happen. You can't say that I want to lose these cottage cheese thighs, and that's where I want the fat to go away from. It doesn't happen that way. The body burns fat where the body burns fat. When you burn fat, it's a process that takes place metabolically throughout the entire physiological structure. So you can't just target one specific area. When you lose body fat, the body is going to determine where it's going to come away from. So the process is to burn body fat, and in general, you want to do things that are going to help to burn or torch body fat the most effective and efficient manner possible. So that's your goal. So that's what this is about. So these are strategies that are designed to target visceral fat or central fat, basically the fat that is around the midsection of an individual. So first one, eat more soluble fiber. Okay, that is topic number one. And if you're jotting these down, I highly recommend it because you need to put these down as part of your regimen. Soluble fiber, what does soluble fiber do? Basically, it forms a gel when you ingest it. It thickens, okay? It becomes viscous. And once that happens, it helps to slow down the food as it passes through your digestive system. Now, what happens is, and there's been a lot of research on that, when you're ingesting this type of fiber, it promotes weight loss by helping you to feel full. Okay, and what happens when you feel full? Typically, if you're doing the right things, you stop eating, right? So you're not eating as much. You're not taking in as many calories. Soluble fiber will also help you to decrease the number of calories that your body actually absorbs from food. So it's a great way to enhance your weight loss regimen and your weight loss tactics. So soluble fiber is key. What are some sources of soluble fiber? I'm going to give you some. Flax seeds. Now, I use flax seeds a lot. I mix those into my smoothies, my protein drinks and that. You can find them from any health food store or grocery stores will carry them, some of the higher end ones. That's one. Shiitake noodles, good source. Brussels sprouts, avocados, legumes, basically beans, blackberries. These are all excellent sources of soluble fiber. So if you're interested in losing belly fat, a good starting point is to increase your intake of soluble fiber. So take that into account. Number two, you want to decrease or eliminate your consumption of trans fats. Okay, these are fats that are basically created, what's done in food processing labs. Basically, they pump hydrogen into regular oils, things like soybean oil, for example, and they become what are known as trans fats. So where do you find those? Typically, the most common sources like margarine. You can also find them as an additive in packaged foods, just because not only does it adds flavor, it extends shelf life. So those are a couple of sources. Now, you don't find as much in processed foods as you once did because people are becoming more and more aware of the dangers of the consumption of trans fats. And that's why you see a lot of foods promoted, product XYZ now with zero trans fats. They're trying to attract you to the point that, we're not putting this basically almost toxic substance into our food items. These fats, trans fats, have been linked to certain debilitating conditions, things like heart disease, insulin resistance. If you are diabetic, you definitely need to be aware of that, and abdominal fat gain. And these are studies that have been conducted over and over again and proven to help you reduce your belly fat and to help protect your health. Basically, what you want to do is get into the habit of reading those nutritional labels. I can't stress that enough. And once you get into the habit of doing it, it's going to benefit you quite a bit. So when you're going grocery shopping, if you're picking up a food item, a lot of even restaurant menus will now have nutritional information on there. Look and see what it is that you're putting in your body. Okay, take a few minutes, take it off the shelf or get it out of the freezer counter or whatever the case might be. Take a look at the back. You see something that indicates trans fats are in your foods, you need to put that back if you're trying to you're serious about reducing your amount of belly fat. So that's another one. This one is probably going to make a few people uncomfortable and maybe even unhappy, but you want to reduce your consumption of alcohol. And once I'm sorry about that. That should be on mute, and that is a big no-no.
Phones allowed.
So
There are no cell phones allowed.
and you know what, super producer, you are absolutely right, and I'm going to smack my own hand. Bad man. All right. All right. The one that I just mentioned that is probably going to make a few people uncomfortable. You want to reduce your consumption of alcohol. And I know that's a tough one, especially now. If you've been paying attention to any news reports, particularly a lot of these business news or consumer reports, the consumption during this pandemic of alcohol has been skyrocketing. And that's because we utilize alcohol consumption as a coping mechanism. We tend to relax and unwind over a glass of wine or a beer or your spirit of choice, whatever the case might be. The downside of that is it does contribute to additional body fat. And I'm not just talking about beer bellies. I mean, most people know about that. You drink too much beer, it's going to show in that mix section. You're going to develop a gut. It's not just limited to that. And it's simply because a lot of alcohols will contain sugars. And over time, that sugar accumulates. And it's just like sodas. You see, there's a difference between sugary foods and sugary beverages. Sugary beverages, the sugar content is absorbed more efficiently, more rapidly when you drink, when you're consuming a beverage as opposed to a food. It's just a quicker, faster process. So you're taking those excess calories, and they are going to be stored as fat in a very fast manner. So you want to make sure that you're restricting that. If you do consume alcohol, of course, you want to do it in moderation. But alcohol consumption, overconsumption, will contribute to excess body fat. And what we're talking about is something that's referred to as central obesity. Basically, central obesity, just like I mentioned midsection fat, it's just excess fat that's stored around your waist. Okay, and that is something that once that occurs, you start to develop a WHR, which is a waist to hip ratio that's out of line. You've got too much fat around the midsection than you do in other parts of your body. And unfortunately, that's the body type or body shape that's more often associated with things like diabetes and high blood pressure, hypertension, certain forms of cancer, liver disease, fatty liver disease, those sorts of things. So you definitely want to be aware of that. So alcohol consumption, cutting back is a really good idea if you're trying to reduce that belly fat. Next up, topic number 4, or tip number 4. You want to eat a higher protein diet. Now, a lot of people that are in the habit of working out, particularly bodybuilders and heavy lifters, and that they already know the benefits of that. Okay, because protein is basically the building blocks of muscle. It's an extremely important nutrient for weight management. What happens is protein will help to raise your metabolic rate. Okay, that's basically the rate at which foods that you take in or consume are converted into energy. So that's what we're talking about when we're referring to metabolic rate. It's going to also help you to retain muscle even as you lose weight. And that's the key to weight loss. You want to lose the weight. And when I say weight, I'm basically referring to body fat. Okay, you want to lose that body fat, which will make the weight come down. But at the same time, you don't want to cannibalize muscle tissue. So you want to build or maintain muscle as you reduce your weight and eliminate a lot of that body fat. So that's kind of the key. And a lot of people miss that. It's not just about the pounds coming off. How are you going to look once those pounds come off? You don't want to be soft and pudgy and have a structure that doesn't look like it's toned and tightened. So you want the two kind of go hand in hand. Good sources of protein, things like meats, fish. Now, when you're talking about meat, I'm referring to red meats, but you want to make sure that the cuts of meat that you get are trimmed of as much fat as possible. So you want to get the leaner cuts of meat. That's why you hear the term marbleization. We've got the little striations of fat in there, and they tend to be very thin. So you're looking for more of that than you are, less of that than you are the fat, the red meat. So you want to be aware of that. Fish. Things like eggs, dairy, as long as you're not lactose intolerant, whey protein, and beans. So these are just some components that you can utilize to make sure that you're taking in an adequate amount of protein. So that's number 4. Number 5, which is probably one of the most difficult to control, simply because a lot of these the sources of it come from external factors. So basically factors that we a lot of times don't have much control over. And that is reducing your stress levels. Even our super producer Transe mentioned his stress as a result of work obligations and trying to make some things happen. Because of that, what happens when we're under stress, the brain produces a hormone called cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. And that stress hormone, basically, it controls things like, our appetite. We tend to eat more a lot of times when we're under stress. In other cases, the reverse happens. We don't want to eat at all, so you're not taking in the nutrients that you need, or the right amount of nutrients. So it basically throws everything out of whack. Research has shown that high cortisol levels increase appetite, and they drive up abdominal fat storage. So the big source of that, what you really want to focus in on, and I know it's impossible in a lot of cases to eliminate all sources of stress, just because they kind of go, with life, we're under stress naturally. But what you want to do is to do your best to identify and minimize those sources of stress. A lot of times, stress management simply comes down to using a 2-letter word: no. We're oftentimes just too quick to say yes to everything. Okay, yeah, I'll help you with that. Yeah, I'll take you there. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll get this done. And we don't say no enough. And we do that when we take on all these additional burdens. That's going to stress you out. And trust me, being in, because I kind of have a dual kind of a role in the fitness industry and in the healthcare industry. And in both environments, I have seen stress do horrible things to the human body. I kid you not. I've seen people that look like they are 25, 30 years chronologically older than they actually are. I've seen it promote certain debilitating health conditions. And in cases where an individual is already dealing with a medical issue, I've seen it exacerbate it. So stress is not your friend. You want to get it under control. And one of the side effects is that it's going to promote abdominal belly fat storage. So you want to use that as a strategy to eliminate or reduce that. Number 6 is pretty obvious, okay? You want to reduce your consumption or eliminate or not eat as many sugary foods as you might normally do. Sugar contains, in a lot of cases, sugar will contain fructose, and that's been linked to several chronic diseases when it's consumed in excess. Things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obviously obesity, fatty liver disease. These are all things that are really are very significant. The thing about sugar, the sneaky thing, the devious thing about sugar is that it's everywhere. Food manufacturers intentionally put sugar into foods. Why? Because sugar makes stuff taste good. And if food doesn't taste good, you're not going to eat it. Manufacturers aren't dumb. They know that if they want you to buy their products and to like their products, they got to put sugar in it. And sugar is addictive. I've seen studies and videos. I've been involved in meetings that have examined the effects of sugar on the brain. And I've seen the synapses that take place in the brain when sugar is introduced. And you know what it's very similar to? It's almost identical to a brain when it's responding to cocaine. And I mean, it's the same light show, because the body looks at sugar as, this thing that's just going to get it charged up and it makes it feel good. And this is great. And that's why we respond to sugar so well. And that's why sugar is every place, because it's making people a lot of money. It's no accident that the candy bars and the sweet gums and the chips and those sorts of things are at the very end of your checkout line when you go into that grocery store, because those are considered to be impulse buys, right? So you got everything that you need. And you see that, I might as well get a Snickers bar, or I might as well get that bag of chips, or I might as well pick up that gum, whatever the case might be. It's not by accident. Sugar is everywhere, and you need to be aware of that. It's important to realize that we're not just talking, or I'm not just talking about refined sugars, the things that you see in those treats and snacks and cookies and things like that. Even things like healthier sugars, or quote unquote healthier sugars, things like real honey. The honey that you get to sweeten your tea, or you put on your food, or whatever the case might be. Even that in excess can lead to additional abdominal belly fat. So you want to use that as a strategy also. So next up, aerobic exercise or aerobic activity. You definitely want to include that in your routine. Okay, cardio, that's what I'm talking about. So you got to get up and get moving. So it's not just enough, a lot of people a lot of times I'll even see people that are, to have the appearance of being very muscular and very strong and that sort of thing. And they sling the weights around, but they do very little, if any, cardiovascular disease. And that's detrimental as well. Okay, you don't want to have a body that's big and bulked up and solid with a weak cardiovascular system. So you want to make sure that you include that. Aerobic exercise, it's a very effective way to improve your overall health and to burn those calories. So that's going to be a big benefit when it comes to reducing that belly fat. There have been studies that have shown that aerobic activity and exercise for reducing belly fat has been very effective, for example, in postmenopausal women. Women that included up to 300 minutes of cardiovascular exercise per week lost more than their counterparts who did just 150 in terms of reducing that body fat. And we're not just talking about just a calorie here and there. We're talking about inches off of the waistline. So that's very significant. So make sure that if you're not already doing it, you engage in and participate in and make cardiovascular exercise a significant part of what it is that you're doing. Another strategy: cut back on your carbs, especially refined carbohydrates. Reducing this is going to be very beneficial for not just overall well-being, but also for reducing abdominal fat. When you're looking at individuals that are taking in terms of grams of carbohydrates, diets that have under 50 grams of carbohydrates can cause belly fat loss in obese individuals or those with type 2 diabetes on a regular basis. So the key number in that case, if you do happen to be overweight or obese, 50 grams or less of carbohydrates is going to play a big part in reducing that belly fat. So reduce those carbs. And here we're talking about foods that contain a lot of flour and pastas and white breads and those sorts of things. So basically a diet that is lower in carbohydrates, particularly those refined carbs, are going to pay significant benefits for you. Number 9, replace some of, and this one I never really did much of before. I just recently started engaging in it more often. But you want to replace some of your cooking oils and replace those with coconut oil. Okay. Coconut oil has quite a few significant nutritional benefits. So as opposed to, when you're preparing that meal, you're maybe frying something or sauteing it, as opposed to vegetable oil or canola oil or even olive oil. We just talked about that is a good substitute. But try replacing your cooking oil with coconut oil. Because these are what are considered to be medium chain fats. What it does, it helps to boost your metabolism, and it decreases the amount of calories that you upload or intake as a result of the foods that you consume. So, in fact, there was one study that showed that men who were obese and took in coconut oil as a replacement over a 12-week period lost an average of 1 to 2 inches of belly fat during that 12-week period just by substituting coconut oil. Now, here's the key. They didn't change their diets and they didn't exercise. They just substituted that. So that's something that you want to take a look at. So coconut oil is a very, very beneficial food source or food additive that you can utilize in your cooking process as you're preparing those meals. Last up, number 10 is you want to perform resistance training. Basically, you want to work out with weights. Okay, so don't be afraid of the weights. Now, I see this very common, and no offense, but I see this more often with women. Women tend to have a fear that if they start to lift, they're going to bulk up and they're going to end up looking like men, and they're going to lose that softer appearance, and they're going to look rugged and muscular and very dense and thick and bulky. That is not the case. A toned body is different from a bulky, muscular, ripped up body. And simply because women don't have testosterone, they don't have the hormones that are essential in building that huge muscle. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Don't be afraid of that. And even with guys, don't get so caught up in using the same amount of weight every time you train. Okay, pick up those weights. Having a cardio day here and there is great, but you want to supplement the work that you do with resistance training. And here I'm talking about not just free weights, but also machines and body weights as well. Studies that have been shown that revealed that people that were subjected or experiencing or dealing with or living with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, when they integrated or utilized resistance training, they also saw benefits in terms of not just overall health, but also a reduction in body fat loss. Abdominal fat loss. So those are just some strategies that you can use. So I went through my top 10. Next, for our next broadcast, I'm gonna be talking about the next set of 10 when we're talking about losing the body fat part 2 and how we put all this stuff together to make it work for us, so we can reduce that midsection and get a more toned and streamlined appearance to ourselves. So, having said that, next up, I know we're running a little close, but I did want to get into our fitness tip of the day. And the fitness tip of the day that I have for you is to know before you go. A lot of people now more than ever are ordering carryout. Pretty soon, eventually, the restaurants are going to be opening back up. My suggestion is to go on. A lot of these restaurants have websites. Okay, particularly a lot of your higher end ones, and even some of the smaller ones. But a lot of them have websites, and as part of those websites, if you do a little search on those pages, you can find out nutritional information. Take a look at that nutritional information. You can look at the entrees that they have, and a lot of times it will show calories per serving. You want to take a look at that and make sure that it lines up with your fitness and nutritional goals. If you're on a diet, and I don't like the word diet, but let's say if you're on a nutritional plan and you're trying to stay on that plan, you want to see that if that restaurant is friendly to that particular nutritional plan you're on. So if you're going to a particular restaurant and you know that nothing on the menu is really going to do you any good, it might be time to find another menu, another restaurant. You can do the same with carryout. Okay, you don't have to be sitting or dining in, but even with carryout, take a look at those food items. If it's not listed, do some research and find out, well, how many calories are in this particular food item on average. Now, that could vary from depending on how the food was prepared, but you can get a good baseline. You can have a good idea of what that food item is going to look like in terms of caloric intake, in terms of the amount of fat grams, in terms of how many carbohydrates, in terms of how many grams of protein you're getting from those. You can get those basic macronutrient numbers just by doing a little bit of research. So again, my advice, my strategy, my tip of the week is to know before you go. Find out what kind of food items are offered by that restaurant and what the nutritional content is within those food items. So next up, I wanted to take a time. I got a brand new exercise for the week that I want to show you before we sign off. So let me reposition my camera. What we're going to be doing is a brand new exercise, and we're going to be doing something that's going to be toning and working our back. And that is a unilateral dumbbell row. So hopefully I am showing up on the screen fairly clearly. What I'm going to do is start on one side. I'm going to utilize a dumbbell. So you can utilize whatever weight you want to use. This happens to be a 40. So I'm going to position myself where I've got my lead foot. In this case, my left leg is forward. The toe is pointing straight ahead. My back foot, which is my right, is out at a slight angle, and I've got the toes positioned outward. So my toes are positioning out to the right. I'm going to take my non-working hand, which is in this case going to be my left. I'm going to wrap it just above the knee toward the lower portion of the thigh. I'm going to bend at the waist and grab my weight. Now from here, what I want to do is I'm going to take a bent over position. I want to try and have my back nice and level. I don't want to have an arch in it. And I'm going to let that dumbbell just kind of hang. I'm letting that weight stretch me out. Now from here, what I want to do is to roll and pull that dumbbell up, keeping it close to the side. I am working a muscle that's referred to as the latissimus dorsi. The latissimus dorsi is actually the largest muscle in the upper body. It's that long, flat muscle that runs along. It basically connects at the rear deltoid and goes down toward the pelvis. So it's a huge muscle. And this unilateral dumbbell row is a good way to tone and define it. So a lot of people use the term, well, I got back fat. Well, if you got back fat, this is a great way to help tone and reduce it. A unilateral dumbbell row. I'm just going to change my positioning so you can see it from a different angle. A frontal position. Just rolling that dumbbell straight up and down. Switching sides, everything reverses. Hopefully I'm coming in on the camera properly. Raising that up. I'm going to get a full contraction at the top and lower it under control. The unilateral dumbbell row. All right. Hopefully that is something that you can integrate into your own workouts. I've shared a couple of things that I've been using myself with the jump rope sequencing and the unilateral dumbbell row. We've now addressed, I believe, about 5 different exercises. For our next broadcast, we're going to string those together and we're going to perform a sample workout utilizing all of those exercises together. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so super producer, how are we looking?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the time. That is the time. The Vanguard Fitness Hour brought to you by WDHR Digital Radio Broadcasting. Once again, lose the belly fat, part 1. Next week, part 2, lose your belly fat. Exercise of the week. So this is what we do, people. See you next week, Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. New York time, 9 p.m. California time. Mountain time, that's 8 a.m. actually. It's going to be 8 a.m. on the mountain time. Let's see, China, Japan, Russia, all you people. Anybody want to come in and get a workout, come on in.
How about folks from Zimbabwe? Can they come in?
Okay, the people from Zimbabwe, Ghana. We didn't forget you all.
We'll see you guys again Friday, January 29th is our next show. We're looking forward to it. Until the next time, remember the Vanguard motto: train hard, eat clean, and stay focused. Stay healthy, folks. I'll see you next week.
See you next week, y'all. Peace.